Hey everybody, Kyle Wright coming at you with another video log on personal injury. So the number one question that I get after I've had a consult with a personal injury client is, how much is my case worth? That's the question that we all want to know, right? And if you're watching this blog, if you're looking for a personal injury attorney, that's probably a question that you have. And it's a fair question. That's why you're meeting an attorney. That's why you're pursuing this. But it is a loaded question with a lot of factors that go into it. The most common misconception is people think that it's an equation. If you put in how much your bills are and you type in how much work you've lost, that there's an equation that will tell you exactly what your case is worth. Well, this is not true. It's not true at all. The one thing I will say is there is a proportion aspect to this. Take this example into account. Say that you are severely injured and you have $300,000 in medical bills. $10,000 for pain and suffering probably isn't going to satisfy you. Switch it around and say that you're in a minor fender bender. Maybe you have an emergency room visit, nothing's really wrong with you, you follow up with your primary care physician for one visit, total bills are $800. Well, in that case, I can safely say that you ain't getting $10,000 in pain and suffering. It just isn't happening. So while there's no equation, there really is kind of a proportion aspect to this. But that's just one component. There's really so many factors that come into play when I'm evaluating how much a case is worth. One of those things is liability. Were you somehow at fault or were you partially at fault? Say that there's an accident on the road and while the other party was cited, maybe you could have avoided the accident. Maybe you could have let them clear the intersection before a crash occurred. The insurance company is going to evaluate this, and if a jury puts any percentage of liability on you, a jury verdict is reduced by that amount. So if a jury awards you $100,000, but they say, but unfortunately you were 25% at fault, you're only going to get an award for $75,000. The insurance companies take this into account. Another issue is whether the jury is going to award the fair market value of your bills or what your health insurer paid. You may have $100,000 in medical bills from the treatment that you received, but let's say that you have a really good insurance company and they have contractual write-offs with the providers that you used, so they actually only had to pay $30,000. Well, does a jury award you $100,000, which I'm going to argue, or do they only award you $30,000, which is what the insurance defense counsel is going to argue? That's a huge issue, and that's one of the biggest issues that I fight with the defense attorneys. Another thing to take into consideration is that injuries affect people differently. I had a client about 2 or 3 years ago that she suffered a broken pinky finger. Okay. It's worth something, certainly, and we don't want to minimize the effect of a broken bone, but as the insurance company kept saying, it's only a pinky finger. Well, yeah, that might have been only a pinky finger if my client was an opera singer for a living. You don't really need to use a pinky finger for singing. However, my client in this case was actually an extremely high-level sign language teacher. So a pinky finger that wouldn't bend really threw her students off, and she was having a really hard time at work with this. So injury of a pinky finger to her was a lot more valuable than it would have been to somebody who's a singer not playing an instrument. So that is definitely something that I have to evaluate on a case-by-case basis because it does matter. The most important thing to remember is when you're trying to evaluate how much your case is worth, we never know with certainty until treatment is completed. So if you are still treating, it's impossible for an attorney to give you a number into what your case is worth. And if they're telling you what your case is worth without your treatment being completed, then run, because that attorney isn't giving you good advice. Sometimes you're never going to be done getting treated, or you'll get out 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and you're still treating. In that case, we need to start looking at permanency and the value that that brings to your case. That will require experts, but permanency cases certainly have value. All of this goes a long way in saying that when you're injured in an accident, you need to get an attorney. But don't just get any attorney. Make sure you get an attorney that does personal injury. You want an attorney that litigates, an attorney that has a track record in personal injury cases and helps you with these. It's easy for attorneys to say, yeah, I can help you maximize the settlement. All attorneys think that they're master negotiators, but do you have an attorney that's actually tried cases like this? An attorney that files suit, that goes through the steps to actually maximize your case? That's what I have for you today, and be safe out there. Thank you.